Hi everybody, and welcome to another tutorial for XR Engine, now called Ethereal Engine. Today we're going to be talking about our engine bridge to Unreal and how the Unreal Engine can talk to the XR Engine backend for many services that you would want to build a multiplayer game and a social game platform. This is about our Unreal Engine SDK Alpha. It's a brand new SDK designed to allow all of our services, and we'll go through that list, and game server matchmaking, game server lifecycling, all to be accessible in Unreal Engine, and to be accessible in Unreal Blueprints, no less. Now this is an alpha. We're going to take you through an example project, but this is only going to be a high-level overview of everything that we've done. If you have more questions, please come to our Discord. We have a dedicated channel. You can also leave comments in this video, and you can reach out to me, and contact information along with all the links will be in the bottom of the video description. So what do you get with this Engine Alpha? Well, first you get is a user management API. So this will allow users to sign up and log in. That'll be available through bearer tokens or OAuth. You'll get parties, friends, groups, chat, audio and video, all streaming over WebRTC, and along with wallet management and all sorts of other things that are programmable into this backend, all through RESTful services. We have a server party matchmaker built on OpenMatch with extensions for doing lobbies and all sorts of propagation of statistics and pushing into our social engine, so you can get into user management and go, put people with their friends in lobbies so they can play games together. We also have a game server lifecycle system. It extends and wraps a Gones on top of Kubernetes, and it's fully managed so that it's incredibly easy to use in development and production. And it's all isomorphic and in that way where you can use these dedicated containerized servers to act in all sorts of different ways that we'll go through in this demo. Getting ahead of myself. And then we'll go through how do you access all these things inside of Unreal Blueprints. We use a bunch of 2 different helper libraries for that, and I'll show you the patterns to go forward. Some of this is a little rough, it's a little bespoke. As I said, it's an alpha, and we have more planned. Principally, we have a content management system built in Ethereal Engine that allows you to store, search, and retrieve 3D models and other game content. We're extending it for FBX and USD and all these other file types that Unreal Engine consumes, but we're not there yet. We only are using GLTFs right now, so support for that will come soon, along with marketplace services. And for various reasons, we do have some marketplace services that are ready to go for things like buying and selling assets and fungible tokens inside the game, but we're not really supporting those yet, and the tooling's not quite mature. But if you're interested, check out our Blockchain in the Box repo, along with other examples on wallets and inventory that we have around our GitHub organization, and reach out to me and I'll show you how to put it all together. So this is a screenshot of our example. It's built on the Shootout demo from 2016 that Epic put out. And you can see we have a main screen window here that exemplifies all the major functions that we've wired up in this alpha, from actually doing the authorization, kicking up a sign up and login flow. You can touch the wallet backend right now. It doesn't really do much, but it's a good example of how you can retrieve data with a user ID. We have some cool debug features, so you can watch an actual request go out and come back. You can play a game, which will actually insert you into a running dedicated server, which you can manually call out a server name. Or you can go into matchmaking and be assigned a server. And we can show you how all that works. And I've essentially wrapped up some helper blueprints in a folder here that kind of give you an example of how to hit all those endpoints. We also, in this bridge library, have a set of controllers and state managers, all built on blueprints, that'll give you like a high level of how to manage a lot of these variables in global state and get back to them so that you can use them around your Unreal app. These really depend on you being able to do Linux dedicated servers. Building a Linux dedicated server, a headless server in Unreal, is not a well-documented trick. I essentially had to learn how to do it myself. There's only like 2 guides out on the internet and some very sparse documentation on Unreal's official documentation. Since building this, I actually found this group called Unreal Containers, backed by a company that just got an Unreal Mega Grant to build a dedicated server infrastructure. They don't really give out code, but they give these high-level tutorials. And I found some really cool clues on how to use these containers for various things. We were really only using it for dedicated servers in our first iteration, but now there's a bunch of documentation on how to do cloud pixel streaming, how to actually build a cloud-based editor that you can pixel stream into, run your dedicated build pipeline and CI/CD pipelines using these containerized versions. All very, very cool, especially if you have big builds. And we'll show you how to do that later on. Really where to start when it comes to XR Engine, when it comes to what we now call Ethereal Engine, you want to download the Control Center. So what's the Control Center? Well, the Control Center is a desktop app that runs on Linux, and you can actually use this through Windows Subsystem for Linux if you're on Windows, if you download the latest version. And it will essentially auto-install and run everything you need to set up a server control plane. And it'll run just like it does in production. You can see this is Hans's desktop here. And he has a whole tutorial here. I won't go through it. You can check it out yourself. It'll be in the links, and allows you to do configuration and set up this control plane. And we'll get back to this in a bit because there's some customization we will need to do called a project installation to actually get this control plane running a dedicated Unreal server. So the first thing that you should do is get your Unreal project out and install VA REST or VA REST. I don't know how it's pronounced. I've never heard it spoken. But VA REST is essentially a library that allows you to do REST calls inside of Unreal. Our backend API surface is all in REST calls. So this is a really convenient wrapper that's battle tested in many projects. We also have Agones. Agones is a great tool chain that allows you to run dedicated server lifecycling through Kubernetes in a way that's completely cloud agnostic, and it's really fundamental to the XR Engine, Ethereal Engine backend. So Agones comes with some beautiful tooling to do actual node-based editing, and we'll be extending Agones with some lifecycle hooks and some state variables to manage the dedicated server. And here's a little bit more information on how to actually make a containerized headless dedicated server. I'm going to consider that a bit outside the scope of this high-level conversation today. But let's say you get a server running, or you got a server compiled and in a container. You're going to need to make that server configurable. Essentially, that means you can actually pass command line arguments into the server, or pass environment variables into the server, and that server can automatically load up a level with some configurations and be on the network. So this is, for instance, saying, hey, this is a game. This game has like an island level, and in this island level, make this island a lobby and listen for players on local, right, and run it in server mode. Or you could say, hey, actually, now that they're out of the lobby, let's actually start a game, a death match, listen for people. It has a certain game mode, listen on local, and Agones will start pointing traffic to it. And we can get there. Whoops. hit too many buttons. One moment. All right. So the server is actually running and loading up the right game and asking for traffic. So that's how we will life cycle here, and we'll actually get into the demo soon enough and actually go through that. So the other things that you probably want to do here is actually get information about the user, get information about their friends list, or what's their ranking and things like that. And you'll need to actually hit the API. And we're going to do that through VA REST. This is an example screen of VA REST, REST. It's pretty simple. It's essentially a subsystem that allows you to do asynchronous HTML calls. And you'll give it a payload of a URL and some JSON that you can actually send to it. Everything we use here is open API based, so it's very much JSON payload driven. You also need a header with a bearer token. I'll show you that later. That essentially authorizes the call. It goes out, it comes back and gets hydrated, and then you essentially are going to take that JSON and essentially deserialize it so that it can actually be understood by Unreal and broken out into strings and actually passed into the system to drive variables in the game. And that can all be done by a controller. So this whole system has really been tested on 4.26 and 4.27, but it could work on Unreal Engine 5, could work on Unreal Engine 4.24. Most of these libraries are pretty standard. It's REST. It's pretty simple there. So let's skip over that. Let's skip over that. Yeah. So let's go to the control surface. So this is the when you spin up the XR Engine control center and run it locally, you'll get this control surface, and this shows you everything you can do. So to actually use it, you're going to need a bearer token, and you can get that out of the database. There's other tutorials on that, the setup tutorial in our main site. And then you can actually call anything in here in the control plane as you need. Good examples here would be create a group, or create or read out a group. That would be a good example. Another one is, I'm looking for the matchmaker. Yeah, matchmaker. So the matchmaker is essentially a ticketing system. It's like queuing up at the deli. You get a ticket, your ticket gets called, and you get assigned. So this is essentially how you get a ticket and then wait for it to return an assignment. This is a little different than any of the other calls that are done in the system. These require either long polling or a webhook. And I would reference the example code to actually see how this is done. The reason we're using long polling and a webhook here is essentially because this could take a while. You could be sitting in line for a hot minute. So the other parts of this are that you're actually going to need to build an XR Engine project to host the dedicated server. A project is essentially a bundle. You're going to have to build a project really to contain all the backend customizations you need and the dedicated server. We have project examples as well, which I'll link down there. And this is documentation of how to build a project and the scenes. What's going to be special is you're going to actually need to add the Docker container for the dedicated game server to this project, along with configuring a few other parameters in the project to point to that dedicated Docker container headless Unreal game server. And again, I would look at the examples. If you have questions, look out. We're going to go through here real quick. But as you can see, you make a project, and then you go into the backend, and you can install it. So if you go over here to our backend, you can see these are the projects installed. All you have to do is come here, add a project. You can do it by URL. We also have a package registry. If you'd like to register your game server in our package registry, we can show you how. There's also ways to directly connect to GitHub, so it automatically will pull in the project as it updates. And this is going to be replaced with an even better screen with a pull and push, where you can update, save, and version these projects not only in GitHub, but on the control plane. So let's hop into the Unreal Engine next and show you what's going on. So if you go to our example project, you will see a zip to download, a binary zip right here, example multiplayer shooter.zip, and this will download the example project for 4.24 to 4.27. And I have over here on my Windows machine, it actually loaded up. Now you'll notice there's some widget prefabs that are wired up to some blueprints that I have isolated in the XR Engine folder that go through some example flows. And I have the user and login blueprint here. Looks like there's a build error, but that's usually because you need those two basic plugins. The thing about these plugins, and really plugins in general, is, and that you can see in here, is that you might need to recompile all of Unreal Engine. This is a hot tip. You might need to recompile all of Unreal Engine or these plugins as you need for Linux. These do not compile directly to Linux and sometimes will error out. So you'll see in modern versions of Unreal, you can actually build directly for different platforms, especially easy in Unreal Engine 5. But these will not necessarily work out of the box without some low-level compilation needed. So there's, as I've referenced in the documents, there's several things that actually will, there's several pieces of documentation that will walk you through that. And then you'll actually have to wrap it in a container. This container image documentation is really great. You're going to need a pretty beefy container with minimum specs. Unreal Engine's kind of a power hog. And this will take you through the details. Feel free to reach out. I know what most of these things do now. Don't use a Windows container. It won't work properly. You're going to need a Linux container, preferably a Debian one. And you might have a lot of trouble unless you fiddle around with your BIOS and get virtualization running. It will be non-obvious to game developers how to do this. So yeah, so you are now you can now look into here and see how to actually do authentication and call these endpoints. But once you've gotten authentication, you're going to actually have to hold some stuff in global state. So I'm just going to list off a few things. First of all is, I'm just going to list off a few things you're going to need to actually hold in global state. First being the bearer token, which is actually what you're going to use to sign all the requests in the header. You're going to need a connection ID, which is going to be given to you by the matchmaker, which actually tells you where to go. You actually probably need to track some more stuff for the matchmaker. There's all of this in the example. I just pulled out the big ones. All game servers, soon to be renamed present servers, will have an instance ID. Game modes going to need to be known all the way up on the control level, so you can say like, oh, I want deathmatch, search for deathmatch. That'll have to be known to the database. Whether the game server is paused. A lot of the game servers will actually pause when there's nobody in them or everyone leaves. Sometimes they can even recycle. And they need to know things about which players are connected and any state stuff that you want to persist at the end of the game, like who won, who lost, how many kills did they get. All of this should persist in global state, be visible to a GONAS, so it can be passed back and recorded. So I'll leave that in the notes. Yeah, so I feel like we're going long. Maybe I'll just cut it off here for now. But yeah, check out this server example and let me know what you think. Yeah, we could probably go into a GONAS a little bit. So a GONAS is used to actually reference the server state. And when you bring in the Agones plugin, it's going to do a lot of great things out of the box, like actually manage health checks, make sure things are healthy, tell Unreal to start up and shut down. But you're going to need to extend it with those metadata points that I talked about. You'll see that right there under metadata. And you're also going to need to extend that as well to take to actually really create and consume the command line arguments. You can do that on the container level. You can also do that in Agones. For various performance reasons, doing it in the command line arguments at the and passing it into the container will give you some speed up because like the game will just immediately load. It could matter, because a few seconds here and there really is noticeable when gamers are sitting around. I think that's where I'm going to leave it right now. We're really excited about this alpha. It's pretty damn powerful. I would like to extend it to Unreal Engine 5. I'd like to build more Blueprint nodes that wrap VA REST a bit more. We'd love to do this for Unity. We'd love to do this for Godot. I'd love to use Unreal Pixel Streaming. If you guys think this is interesting, please reach out and let me know. We'd love to have collaborators. We're always accepting donations at the Open Collective. It's a really exciting time. I don't think there's anything quite like what we're building, especially so open and easy to use. I'm really proud of what the team has done building this control center and building really powerful local tools. There's also ways to use this for bot testing that we haven't even got into. You can actually take these containers and execute them as bots, and there's an entire bot framework built into XR Engine that can also use these containers. So we might get into that at a future video. So I'm going to leave that there for now. Thank you so much for your time, and welcome to Ethereal Engine. It's very, very fun to share this with you all.